trainings, which is one of the trainings we're having tomorrow. And then we are building an online management software for the public sector in Africa, but strictly for women. And then we have something that we're launching next year called Electa Future Lawmakers Program, which is essentially just to train the next generation of female lawmakers across Africa. Because we realize that without the right policies, nothing is going to get done, right? And then the final piece of it is enable. So a lot of organizations play in this space. However, if you look at the Beijing conference, what's happened after then? It's just been people recycling a lot of ideas. But the thing is that if you don't put your money where your mouth is, nothing is going to happen. And one of the fundamental issues or problems that women face, because Nigerian politics is very expensive, is women have, very limited access to finance. So as an organization, we are raising funds to directly fund candidates come 2023 and some of the elections next year. So essentially, that's what we're doing as an organization, essentially trying to get women, and it's an end-to-end approach and it's non-partisan. Well, our goal is really about women's political representation and leadership, just so we can get to where we want to get to as a nation.
Okay, thank you, Vijake. We'll dwell more on that when we get to the question segment. Over to you, Okpeolu. Please, what is Daddy doing as regards the role in Nigerian society? Okpeolu, are you there, please? Is he with us?
Hello.
Okay, you're with us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, the question was, what is your organization the role your organization is playing in the Nigerian society? Could you briefly tell us a little about it?
Yes, my organization is Disability Awareness and Development Initiative. From the name, of course, it suggests that we work with persons with disabilities to see how we can get them to participate in the society, that's in the social space, in all aspects of social space. Yes, so firstly, I think it's a very good thing we have to understand what disability is, because disability is the only minority group. It's about the largest minority group in the world, and it cuts across every other one. You have women with disabilities, you have elderly people with disabilities, you have girls and boys. And so it's a whole spectrum of society. And but for us and for every other society, disability has been seen as a ground for, I would use the word inferior, though that's a bit harsh, for making somebody inferior in the society. It portrays a person as somebody who is dependent, who needs everybody else's charity or support to do basic things. And so it's even though it is very prevalent, it's one of the things that are least understood in the society. And
okay,
so,
thank you very much. Okay.
Can you? Okay.
Sorry.
Is my time?
Yeah, it's just brief introduction. We'll get to the questions, and the questions will afford you the opportunity to touch in details or these parts of the organization and how it relates to the everyday life, both in Nigeria and globally.
All right, then. Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sheon, please, from JCI. What is your organization? What's their role in the Nigerian society?
Okay, thank you very much. Junior Chamber International, that's JCI, is a worldwide federation and the leadership organization. We are set to create opportunities for youth to become leaders for the changing world, because, this COVID has opened our eyes, this COVID era has opened our eyes to the fact that the world is changing very, very fast. And if we do not keep up, then we'll be left behind. JCI caters for people between the ages of 18 and 40, because we believe that's where the major part of the population of any country is centered. Those between the ages of 18 and 40, they are the youth, they are the powerhouse of any nation. So we believe in empowering the youth. We believe in empowering to make them agents of change using various means and different methods, which I'm sure we'll get into when we get to the question section. So JCI is focused on the youth, ensuring that we develop youth that can meet up with the changing world that we found ourselves today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sheon. Saeed, over to you.
At Follow Taxes, we work to bridge the gap of a triangle that is trying to connect the public finance management to the citizens, which is a very difficult thing to do, especially since it relates to public finance that is in the hand of the government and now trying to get the citizens to have a trust and demand for accountability and work toward a better result. So what we are trying to do every day by day is trying to connect citizens with the government, connect government with the citizens to make sure there's that mutual trust that will grow a system.
Said, are you with us? Okay.
So
Hopefully, okay.
I feel like there's a break, right?
Yes, there was a break.
Well, cool. So basically, that's what we do. We try to link the two to be the bridge between citizens and government and to demand accountability for better results.
Okay, thank you very much. We have Shamsuddin from Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship. So Shamsuddin, please tell us what role the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship plays in the Nigerian society.
Thank you, Blessyn. As rightly introduced by my colleague Tolu, the Kashim Fellowship is a non-partisan fellowship which is geared towards institutionalizing excellence in public service. You will agree with me that the Nigerian public institution is in a state of decay or one way or the other, but we cannot totally say we are kind of tired with the system. We believe there is hope, and this is a generation of youth working towards making the nation better through mentorship. So basically, it's about achieving sanity in public service, which we believe will go a long way in making the ride worthwhile in the Nigerian public service.
Okay, thank you very much, Shamsuddin. Thank you very much all for giving us brief insight into what roles your organizations play in the Nigerian society. Now, we are all mentioned something quite similar, and that was the presence or the need to have youth inclusion in governance. How does the pioneering youth inclusion in governance and political process policy, known as the Not Too Young to Run bill that was passed in 2018, affect the Nigerian youth? We're going to start with Ibijoke and go in that order. We can't hear you.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Can you please again? I lost you for 1 second there.
Okay, so how does the pioneering youth inclusion in governance and political process policy, known as the Not Too Young to Run bill that was passed in 2018, affect the average Nigerian youth?
So I kind of feel like that was a springboard. Because what then happened was it definitely inspired and motivated a couple of people to run. So you saw a high percentage of youth population, running for elective office, which was something that we didn't see in previous elections. And that's why, excuse me, got heartburn. That's why, earlier when I was talking about the role of policy, the nation building, that it's very important, because when you have a polity that is not reflective of the people, then you start seeing deficiencies when it comes to policy outcomes. So for a country that has, I think we have about 35 million youths right now, but one of the highest youth populations in the world, it just shows you that, Nigeria matters, in Africa, Nigeria matters, across the world as well. So if the youth population are not equipped, if they're not enabled, if they're suppressed and oppressed, then we cannot achieve our sustainable development goals. We cannot achieve socioeconomic progression. We cannot accomplish nation building as well. So what Not Too Young to Run bill did was to really provide a case that this is possible, right? And that's why it's also inspired organizations like Elector, because then you start looking at the critical areas that where you have that huge deficiencies, especially areas that are sort of igniting inequality, right? So when you look at the youth representation deficiency, the women representation deficiency, so what it did for the average Nigeria was just to really give them a platform for their voices to be heard, for them to also, for them to also be more involved in politics, as opposed to being just from the citizens that are engaging in politics, but now to be active participants by saying, I want to be involved in decision making, I want to be involved in policy formulation. I think earlier today, so just to say one of the things that happened earlier today, I think is it on Honorable Akinlabi? I saw that he pushed for a bill, right? I think it's to take guns out of road marshals, right? Because they're not meant to have guns. So he proposed a bill for that. And so you're seeing much more progressive policies, right, being pushed now. And that's what you see, because that intergenerational approach is so important and so instrumental to effective governance. And so that's what you've seen, and that's the way it's affected the lives of like average youths in Nigeria.
Okay. Thank you very much. Would you say the youth not too young to run bill is actualizable in the Nigerian society?
Are you still talking to me?
Yes.
Absolutely. Why not? So first of all, it's been passed. So it's been actualized, right? Now, there were two things actually, and I think it's a learning curve, right? And it's the same thing I say about the NSAS campaign. For me is, I think every nation, every society needs to understand the gradual process to development. We can't achieve everything at once. Some things will springboard other things, and they can be very catalytic. They can also have a multiply effect. A lot of things you're saying now, right, manifested from the Not Too Young to Run bill. Youths are empowered. There's a lot of growing social consciousness. Youths are more involved and more informed, and they really want to be they really want to be more active in the polity of the nation. And so are all like very catalytic and multiplying effect of this Not Too Young. So it's been actualized, but in terms of its enforcement, there are internal party politics, there's the financing aspect. As long as politics in Nigeria is still heavily monetized, we're not going to achieve that level of youth representation that we want. However, the good thing is we have a weapon, which is there is a law that's been enacted. So if different organizations can play their parts, where they're saying, you know what, now we've done the part. So people like IAGA have done the part, and the stakeholders have played a huge role to get these laws enacted, right? Now it's for other stakeholders to say, you know, how can we really throw our weight behind the youth? We understand that there's systemic issues. Politics is very expensive. We understand that we also need some electoral reform, some party. We need to also reform the party constitutions as well. So there's so many moving pieces in these, and we can't really measure success just by saying that, you know, that bill was passed. But it's a gradual process.
Okay.
To see that manifest, even with the NSAS campaign, you know, we can still link it to a lot of things that happen from Not Too Young to Run bill. Yeah.
So a gradual process. Thank you very much.
You're
So Paulu, please, what's your take on this?
Okay, hello.
Yes.
Yes, I'm on now. Okay. Yes, I've listened to Video. Okay, that was very nice. And yes, I'll just pick it up from where she stopped. The Not Too Young to Run Act, which is what we are talking about, actually provided a room for, there's something in our society that seems to be missing, and that's mentorship. It's as if we expect people to just grow up in age chronologically and then suddenly understand responsibilities and how to be what without the process of learning the ropes. But it doesn't work like that. And so what that act has allowed is a process by which youth get involved in governance, and therefore by the time they get to the so-called ripe old ages, whatever that would mean, they are already kind of, they have experience, they understand the ropes, and then they can deliver. That's the whole essence of that act, and that's the most important thing it has given. And apart from that, okay, the Constitution says, I said, but when people are 18 years old, they are already supposed to be responsible for their own activities. They can be jailed, they have civic responsibilities that they must perform and things like that. And yet they cannot take part in determining what happens to them. It's just like what caused the American Civil War. It was taxation without representation. You want to make laws for people you don't understand. And many things have changed. I mean, in the private sector, we have youths getting into position. Most of the job adverts now say 23, 24, maybe at most 27 to come in at the entry level. And then by the time people are in their 30s, they're already taking on senior management positions in companies, which are also as important as governance positions. So if it's going to work in the private sector that way, it is very should I say it's very problematic that in the public sector, which actually determines what happens in the private sector, because governance is where the rules are. I think politics is about who gets what, how, why, when, and all those kind of things. So if they are going to be leaders who are going to take the decisions and they're cut off from that part, then there's going to be a kind of disconnect, and we can see it in our economic progression. It is the disconnect between the past and the present, and it is the youth that are the present anyway. So we cannot continue cutting the present away. Well, I mean, we can't continue using the past to try and override the present if we are thinking seriously about moving forward as a nation. So I think what that act has really done is to give the stepping stone, the ladder on which Nigeria is actually going to climb to a brighter future if we can harness the power in the youth.
Okay, thank you very much. You did touch on the next question I wanted to ask you, which was what may be responsible for low youth involvement and how that can be rectified. So I think you made mention of mentorship, and that's definitely a good way to start, a stepping stone to attaining better accountability and future for Nigeria. So Sheung, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Blessyn. The past speakers have already really
okay
the matter, but yes, touched on it. But okay, so I'll just say this: the act for me has motivated youth to actually take action. It's one thing to be aware of what you can do, it's one thing to just have the head knowledge, but the act was like a propeller, and then validating the fact that youth can run. They are not too young to run. So it opened up, possibilities and allowed for youth to begin to think of really taking part in the decision making of the country. But like last speaker said, there's been a very big disconnect, all right, from a place of information, from a place of knowledge, and then from a place of mentorship. There's been a very big disconnect between the young and the old. And we can't keep recycling that same system if we want a better country for ourselves, if we want a better Nigeria for tomorrow. So the act has kind of validated the fact that we can do it as youth and we should begin to do it. So it has opened up the frontiers for youth to begin to participate actively in politics. But the drawback has been that there's no information. And like the last speaker said, most times you have youths who are just graduating from school, the jobs are not there, the empowerment is not there. And I said it as well, that politics is really financial, so to speak. It needs a lot of finance. And then this youth, who is financing them? Who is going to finance them? The youth that hasn't gotten a job, the certificate they got 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, still lying fallow in their folders. How do they then actively participate in the politics if there's no finance? So the whole structure is like a very big web, but I'm hoping that with this act we'll begin to unravel it, and slowly and steadily but surely we will get it.
Thank you very much, Sheung, for pointing out that it's quite more detailed and a lot more than just passing the bill. I'm just going to tweak the question a little, Saeed. Despite the Not Too Young to Run bill being passed, and we're happy that that has started various conversations across all boards, what are factors responsible for low youth involvement, and how can these factors be rectified?
Thank God I'm not speaking first because they've actually said so much about this. But one fact, if you look at the nature of our work, even in follow taxes, is we're actually campaigning for something very important, that is the democracy or development beyond the ballot box.
Okay.
Why we're always fixated at most of these challenges and where we're standing now is simply because we always look at it, okay, I have to be elected into a position, which is very key and very important. But if a person who is elected in the office doesn't perform, what do? We put our hands and wait until after 4 years. We never have that time. We'll never have the result that we want, because what it means, it will be having a stop of 4 years, which before we realize we'll have 40 years with nothing done. Now, if you look at the whole of it, even when we're making analysis of the Not Too Young to Run, Most of the 33 million we're talking about are under the age of 30. But if you further disaggregate of the real people, that's between 18 to 29 are the 33 million. But if you look at the total population of Nigeria, more than 40% of Nigerians are actually below the age of 15. Now, if below the age of 15 are more than 40%, 33 million is about 20% of the population, which put it as 60% of a good block of a certain group of age grade that are left out of activities and performing, not being able to electioneer, that is contest for election, not being able to participate and understand what the government is doing and rather to engage, not being carried along in getting the right result. It creates a huge gap that will take us, imagine a person who is 1 and now 30, the gap, it means next 30 years, that's fulfilling the gap. Now, that's the scary part. So the best thing, I think, if we really want to build a bridge and get the result, is to have this all-inclusive approach in which we have a full participatory democracy, where we bring every youth and every young person with the right mentorship and the right ability of understanding how the government works to participate in governance. At the same time, while we're trying to equip these young people to lead in the processes and also have a first-hand knowledge and engagement by the right reorientation and having the actual political space. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, you did. You answered it wonderfully. So all-inclusive approach, because I think the example you cited about someone being 1 and having to wait till 30 did put things into perspective. And I hope our viewers are following this closely and are able to keep track of the explanation. So moving to Shamsuddin from KIF. Shamsuddin, how can low youth involvement, the cases of low youth involvement in governance, in the development of Nigeria, how can it be rectified?
Well, this is something that requires the morale of the youth. Even though we have had success passing the not too young to run bill, well, that is symbolic, and it's really something that shows that we can achieve something as a youth of the country. However, if the youth are to come together and have sincerity of purpose is what is lacking among us. Many of us really want to become leaders, but don't even know what the leadership entails. If youths come together to achieve predetermined goals and objectives with sincerity of purpose, with clean hearts, with that commitment to achieve, it's really going to go a long way in making the youth go into politics and not looking at it like, because present politicians has made it look like it's a profitable venture. No, if we have this zeal that we are going into it because we want to benefit the community at large, then it will go a long way in reshaping our minds towards achieving. So for youth involvement, for the high turnout to be achieved in politics or in governance, we really have to set standards. And these standards have to be standards that are realistic and are honest. If we do that, then we are going to achieve what the predetermined goals and objectives we set for ourselves.
Okay, thank you. I think sincerity of purpose is a very good point to state there, and predetermined aims and objectives as well. Thank you very much, Shamsuddin, for that. So moving on, we will be, the floor will be open to anyone who wants to go first, and then we just take turns in answering that regardless. What do youth require to get involved in governance? Now, we have spoken at length about the Not Too Young to Run bill and the possibility and the celebration about the fact that the youth have gotten a platform, but what do they truly need to get involved at this point, bearing the Nigerian society, the state of Nigerian society, current state in mind? Anyone could go first.
I think I would love to go first.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would love to go first on that one. Most important ingredient and tool is actually knowledge and engagement. Ability to ask questions and get the right answers. To understand what is it that what is even that thing that is called government, how does it run? What is the budget and how do they make them? What is procurement and how do they expend them? How do government even get its money?
Okay. I think we're having his video is having a bit of trouble.
Okay, do you want me to comment on
Yes,
that?
please. You could comment.
I mean, I totally agree with him. So there's something we have educated people, but not necessarily enlightened people. So I think we, the youth population, we need to enlighten ourselves.
Okay.
Just come out when we have issues like NSAS. Governance continues. It's a process, and we must engage actively with that process. We need to be involved. One of the reasons why the youths have been sidelined for so long is just because of that nonchalant attitude towards politics, policy, governance. It's just now that you're seeing this social awakening and this growing social consciousness that you're then seeing people asking questions. And you can just see what has happened, right? You can see what happened with the NSAS campaign. When the youth ask questions, what happens? When they decide to grow their knowledge intentionally, what happens? Another thing I also wanted to say is, you said the word active participation in politics and governance is very, or the sentence very ambiguous in the sense that not everyone needs to run for elective office. You must be honest about your strengths. Like, I'll tell you something. Everyone that knew me growing up were like, oh my God, Ibijoke is going to probably be a president someday. She's going to run for office. But you said the more I engaged with issues, the more I walked across Africa, the more I got to meet people, I had to ask myself that deep question. Is the best part of me I can present right now to my nation running for office? Or would I want to be an enabler? And I realized something. I love resource mobilization. I like bringing people together. I'm very great with idea generation. So I want to tap into what I have as opposed to saying I want to run for office. Also is, look, yes, politics can be very attractive, but it takes a lot of work and depth. So you need to put in the work. So for we, the youth population, is to understand the various aspects of governance. You can be a follower and still be a leader. Not everyone needs to run for office. You can choose people who are competent, right? Who will present that case study. It has to be evidence-based. Development is evidence-based. And then you build your kitchen cabinet. If you're going to be the influencer, if you're going to be the sponsor, if you're going to be a campaigner, just play a role. If you simply want to access information and then engage and sensitize people around you, you're still playing, you're still actively involved in politics and governance. So I think we need to break it down, because I think a lot of people have that misconstrued perspective about politics and governance, saying you have to be in it. As a citizen, you're one of the greatest instruments of democracy. So it's to understand what it actually means to participate in governance and politics. And that is breaking it down and understanding your fundamental right, your duty of call as a citizen to care, first of all. And then if you feel like you have what it takes, if you want to go above and beyond, you can then run. But if you also feel like this is not the time for you to run and you'd rather support someone, then do it. But don't be selfish about it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So everybody having their role to play and not necessarily running for office. Okay. Would you want to go next, Sean?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you very much. So building on what Abia said and what Shamsuddin said before, sincerity of purpose is very, very paramount. When this rave about lazy Nigerian youth was on and on and on, of course, we debunked it and all that, but we debunked it from the aspect of being physically enabled, being, very industrious. We are working, yes, we are doing businesses, yes, we are selling this or we are selling that, we are opening business, we are opening companies. But I think it comes more from the intellectual perspective. Are youth actually very, very enlightening, like I said, about politics, about good governance, about nation building? Do we sit in such trainings and really assimilate them and get to work? Or we prefer more of the, aspire to inspire and don't perspire so that you don't retire kind of discussions? What discussions do we actually engage in? Are we involved in intellectually stimulating conversations? Excuse me, where you get to understand exactly, even from your locality, from the local government where you are, not necessarily where you are from, where you are right now. Do you understand the little local government politics happening there? From the chairmanship position, do you understand grassroots politics? Do you know what it takes to begin to build your career in the political terrain and begin to climb up the ladder? It's not just to become a senator. It's not just to become an honorable in the House of Representatives. It's not just to become a governor. Just from there, like I said, know your place, know your strength, and actually be willing and ready to serve. Because politics is it's a place of service. If you want to really be a leader, then you should be ready to serve. But most of us just want the glam that comes with the office, the paparazzi that comes with the office. We are not sincere to ourselves. We are not ready to put in the work. So I think that's where it starts from. You should begin to sit down and buckle up. I wish we could even have, summits that are seriously centered around. I think Joyce Daniels is doing something around that, discussing the Nigerian Constitution. Yes, that's where it starts from. Some of us have never, ever read the Nigerian Constitution. And you say you want to participate in governance, that's where it starts from. I think we should begin to get ourselves more involved in those kind of discussions that will put us in the right order. And then don't think you can do it on your own. You need to work with a team. You need to build a team. And in building that team, you should have like an onion mechanism where you have a very tight inner circle, then the larger one, and then the bigger one. And in that way, you have different mentors from different stratas in governance, okay, where you can learn from them by osmosis. Those that you have an opportunity to learn from one-on-one, you learn from them. Start from a place of service. Don't wait till that, that position just opens up and then your hand picked and dropped in there. No, start from a place of service, and I'm sure that we'll begin to get it gradually going forward from there.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. Thank you very much. The onion approach to learning and growing. Saeed, is Saeed back with us? Saeed, we can't hear you. Okay, thank you. Would you want to finish up on your
Yeah, I'm so sorry the network keep tripping. I don't know why, but what I was just trying to say is, well, we're all trying to knit up and understand why it's important we participate in the actual act of contesting an election. It's also very key and important in the actual process that makes up the government. How do we hold, regardless of whoever is elected to office, how do we hold them accountable? Today, we took the advice that's given here that I want to be an advisor to making someone a president or a governor. How do I be a good advisor that will produce the right result? Remember, the target of joining the election is not just to become a governor, a member of the House of Assembly, or president. It's to make your society better so that you live it better than how you met it. And for you to do that does not necessarily mean you have to come up to fight and contest. It can also be achieved by understanding the processes, advising, engaging, and asking the right questions. When you ask the right questions, regardless of whoever is in power, he listens to you. He wants to go with you along. We kept giving example of the present issues we had in the country recently with SARS and SARS and all. And we kept talking about the landmark. Why is it a landmark? It's because there's a voice and the voice is being heard, and now nothing will be the same as it used to be. Now, this is the same thing to some of us who have been working around governance. The more you ask questions, yes, sometimes there'll be a shout, nobody will listen to you, but trust me, just give it a time. Next time they're planning this, they're going to make sure they capture that part you brought into light and make sure it is fixed. So it is important that all of us get involved. Even if you didn't get to contest, you still follow up to make sure the right thing is being done as it goes forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Would you want to answer, Paolua or Shamsuddin? Would you want to chip in?
Yeah, okay. Oh, sorry. I want to chip in one or two things.
Okay. Thank you.
Having listened to the other panelists, I would disagree a little with the idea of saying people have to read the Constitution or go to summits, because if we look at it, the people who are leading anywhere in the world today, and I stand to be corrected on that, not many of them have ever read the constitutions of their country. They came up through the leadership process and they understood it. Now, in Nigeria, we have leadership starts from very young ages. We start as class captains, we start as head prefects in schools. We have the students' union and all those. So all these are still processes of building leadership. So it doesn't have to be until somebody is put in in a government position before we say he's being trained as a leader. And also the idea that ruling a country is totally different from ruling a private enterprise, I think it isn't exactly so. That's why we have things called social enterprise and all those other things. It's still about managing people, it's still about managing resources. So these things come with attitude. And attitude is not something you build by reading books. It's something you get through in a process. Of course, it would be very foolish for any nation to have somebody who's not gone to school, who's not been a leader in anything before, and you put him in a position where he's going to have to manage resources. So that is why we have all the smaller levels of leadership that prepare us for the bigger ones. And that is something we must bear in mind. And that's also why, I mean, a lot of people in the Senate, for example, or House of Rep, it is the first time many of them are taking up any public office. And if you look at even their trajectory, you can see from their background that they've never really been in positions of serious authorities. Or if you take it down a little to the local government levels as well, we have people who are in the local government councils and all that. And I mean, sometimes we engage with them and find that they don't even understand leadership as well. So it's if we start it early, if the youth start getting opportunities, like I said, even in the schools, in churches, in the family, and at the university level, you run the student union. And then the school government does not start by saying they proscribe unions all the time. Instead, they see themselves as mentors and they see what is happening to the unions as good things. And they use those opportunities to encourage the youth and direct them properly. Then by the time the next set of leaders are coming, we have sustainability. Because I think the real problem is sustainability. That has to come in. And so for the youth, the ladders that they have to climb, the law has created one of the ladders. But a lot of other things have to be done, and it has to be deliberately done. If the youth have economic power, I think it was Ibijoke who mentioned the economic problem with women earlier on. And I think it's also the same with the youth. The economy is a very important part. So again, youth have to work. Of course, you have to have economic power with which to fight, and we have to come together. It has to be done in synergy. We know what happens in the student unions. We form kinds of factions and support each other. That is the same way we have to come into the general polity. That is the way the youth can get there. So that's my own take on the matter.
I would need you to clarify something briefly. The Constitution is the single piece of material that governs and holds Nigeria, the pillars of Nigeria in place. If you're saying, you did make mention saying it's not necessarily by reading the Constitution or attending conferences that help break this down into understandability. How will a person that doesn't read a nation's constitution know how to function within the confines of the nation's rules and the nation's ruling without the knowledge of constitution or all that has been set in place before time?
Okay, well, maybe I was extreme. What I'm trying to say, okay, look at it. When you are in school, you do civic education. And the contents of your civic education are taken out of the Constitution. So when I say you don't have to read the Constitution, you don't have to get that document called the Constitution and have to swat it like you're going for an exam before you can become a leader. In a lot of cases, in any case, very few people can actually understand the kind of legalese language that is in some parts of that Constitution. So what I should have said, there should be a deliberate attempt at civic education. That's a very important thing. And we have lawyers among the youth and people who understand this. So there has to be engagements. I didn't say anything about not attending conferences. I'm only saying that if we look at the leadership of today, the people who are ruling right now, a lot of them didn't really attend any particular conferences to prepare them for leadership. I'm not saying it is not good. I'm just saying that knowing the Constitution, a grounds for which somebody will be able to perform in office is good, but it's not necessary. So provided that we follow the real growing up process, that we have civic education and all those things in school. All the contents of those things are taken out of the Constitution. So, formally or informally, you still digest part of the Constitution in the process of getting to be a leader, yes.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Shamsuddin, would you want to chip in on this?
Well, I would only like to chip in and agree more with Mr. Akinola. I agree more with him when he says that no, we don't have to read the Constitution to be a leader or something. But really, I think one of the problems we have as a people is not getting ready for the particular office that we tend to strive to achieve. Most of the problem we have these days is because those that are where they are right now have not been prepared for it. And when they go there, they break things like babies. If you don't know the Constitution and you want to be a lawmaker, in short, you don't even have to strive to be a lawmaker or to kind of get elected to an office before you even read the Constitution. As a citizen, you should have that kind of impression, that kind of knowledge to know how your country runs. Because if you don't know, you wouldn't even know what are your rights, what are your corresponding responsibilities. And there is another thing, as a leader, if you don't read, for crying out loud, I don't even know what a leader you are going to be. Because leaders are supposed to be informed. They are supposed to be deliberate and they are supposed to be systematic. And the only way they can achieve this is through reading. You will be very impressed when you sit down with young people and have a conversation with them. When you have high-level conversation, you will really be impressed with their intellectuality. This is what we do. If as people, as young people, we read things that we think are even things that are relevant, or even things that you think are not irrelevant. Through there, you learn. And you learn how to shape your society and how to become a better person. And there's a popular saying, readers are leaders and leaders are readers. Because if you don't read, there are some level of decision that you cannot take. And you will just be so empty, and it's really going to affect you and affect the followership you get.
Okay. Thank you very much for adding that part. Reading is something worthy of including in our general life skill. Thank you very much all for chipping in on these topics of discourse. I'll be asking specific questions going forward on each panelist, the organization, questions tailored to panelists' specific organizations. And I'll start with Ibijoke from Elect Her. One of the earliest politicians or women known in politics are Margaret Epo and Chief Fumilayo Ransome Kuti. For many years, politics has been considered a man's world with many misconceptions surrounding the roles of women in governance. How can these misconceptions be addressed?
I mean, like you said, it's ensuring that we keep engaging the citizens. It's also ensuring that we can ride on the back of successful moments like this, the NSAS campaign, where people are no longer questioning the competency of women, right? Mm-hmm. Focused on nation building, because after the NSAS campaign, right? So during the NSAS campaign, the infrastructure that drove that campaign was a reflection of what would really happen when you have greater representation, when men and women work together to take active decisions, right? And so that presented a unique case study. So there was something I said earlier. When you want to push for change, it has to be evidence-based. People are not open to change, right? And so there has to be the evidence. There has to be a lot of behavioral change communications, challenging stereotypes. And that's why, I'd spoken earlier about our 4-year approach, the end-to-end approach we have at Electa, and why engage is one of the first aspects, because for us to really carry out the work that we're doing, we need a lot of engagements, across different stakeholder groups. So you're looking at legislative and, policy-related engagement with the governor, with the government, with lawmakers. You're looking at engaging women themselves to really understand what is at stake when they don't come out to say, you know what, I want to run, I want to be included. You're looking at engaging the party structures, who are actually the most critical stakeholders, because regardless of anything that happens, if changes are not effected at the party level, nothing is going to happen. And that's why I'm, in some way, I'm quite optimistic about the electoral reform process that's going on. One of the reasons I'm actually in Abuja at the moment is to attend the public hearing on the electoral reform going on at the moment, and also to sort of reinforce some of the suggestions that we've made through our memo submission, which essentially draws on women's representation at the party level in terms of increasing the provisions, the legal provisions in terms of women representation at that delegates level, because that then translates to delegates nominating more women. I think it's also women taking time to understand the kind of systemic nature of the issues we are facing and being very genuine with it as well. And then women need to stop being so timid about talking. Women need to stop being so timid about talking about money, right? A man is running for office is going to talk about how much he needs, how much it's going to cost him. I always say something, and that's why our approach at Electa is so different, right? We're realists. In as much as we know where we want to get to, we want gender parity, we want, we want socioeconomic progression, but based on the current context, right? After we've done our situation analysis, what are the gaps? We have to tackle those gaps. And others, dealing with all the stakeholders, getting women to run, and providing the adequate social, human, and financial infrastructure that women need to run. So for me, we need to understand the systemic nature and be very realistic about it. But women need to come bolder and stronger. We need more supportive networks for women. And then we need to take the conversation regarding women's political representation and leadership beyond just a gender conversation, more as a nation building conversation. Because when one part of the populace is sidelined, then, like I said, we start seeing gaps in our policy in different critical areas that really affect us. So I think the more different stakeholders, especially the gatekeepers, who are the civil society organizations and the development partners, start shaping discussions that way and not isolating women's issue as just a gender discussion, but as something that is critical to our survival as a nation. And I think it's going to start sinking into the average Nigerian to understand why they need to back this issue.
Okay, thank you very much. You made mention of having your approach at Electa having four dimensions to it. The goal, you said, is you have a goal to set 1,000 women in office by 2023. Can you share with us briefly how far you've gone with this?
Yeah, the goal is to support 1,000 women, and I said we use our words very carefully. You can support people, right? And supporting means access to information, it means to training, like we have at Electa Academy. If you follow our social media pages, you see that we drive a lot of thought leadership. So breaking down different policies. I remember there was a particular piece that we did on gender discriminatory laws in Nigeria, and that thing was archived more than 1,000 times. It just shows you that people are beginning to open their minds to this. However, they're not patient enough to really digest that bulky information. So what we are doing as an organization is to really break it down for the average Nigerian to understand this. But also through Electa Academy, we are equipping women. So tomorrow, we're in collaboration with the Electoral College. We're having a training on the fundamentals of running for office. So it includes what you need to know if you need to run for office, breaking out the political party seats, understanding constitutional electoral provisions, but just starting early for women that might want to run in 2023 and beyond. But in terms of Electa, our commitment, while we have not made a public announcement, one of the things that we're going to be doing in the new year is to sort of announce our commitment to raise a $10 million fund to support 35 women that will be directly supporting for 2023. So yes, on that larger scale, just support, women, 1,000 women towards the ambition. But in terms of being very deliberate and intentional about getting women for office, then we're looking at supporting women that are running for the State House of Assembly, House of Representatives, and then the senatorial seats and some of the executive seats that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. You did touch on my final question, so that will be all. Thank you. Moving on to Opeolu from Disability Awareness and Development Initiative. 15% of Nigerians population, which is 25 million people, are disabled according to the WHO statistic from 2011. But we still see that systems and infrastructures in Nigeria seldom favor people living with disability. What can be done to improve access to community development and these social infrastructures?
The first thing that has been done, that's to create legislation. Because people don't know about disability. They are not even aware of the problem. And so, so what the laws have done is to ensure that there's something people can say, well, according to so and so legislation, you have to do this. Otherwise, nothing will get done. I think the first problem of disability is invisibility. If you look at our data, when we do census, when we do any data gathering thing that has been done in the country, disabled people have never really reflected until, well, recently when we started pushing for those kind of things. And so, there's that possibility of being excluded. And excluded does not mean not participating, but actually being prevented from participating. I'll just quickly say, there's an anecdote I'll just share. I mean, a deaf woman lost her husband and they were doing a program for widows. And she went to line up and somebody said, no, you can't be here, you're deaf. I said, but I'm a widow. But anyway, the other women ganged up against her. They did not allow her to get her entitlement as a widow because she was deaf. So this kind of level of ignorance is one of the things that we have to first combat. If we don't combat the level of ignorance, we're going to have a problem, because every minority, I mean, I heard Ibijoke talking about women and raising funds and all that. The most important thing is what you call affirmative action. So something is being done, and it should also come from the government when they say, okay, they want, in the disability law, we have a clause that talks about political participation, for example, but it doesn't say how it's going to be done. So it means that it is left for us as disability rights advocates to start working out the technicalities of how persons with disabilities are going to involve in politics. But the first thing is that disabled people have to be visible. We have to come to terms with the fact that almost in every family in Nigeria, and I stand anybody to tell me there's nobody who has a disability in their family. It means that somebody has not grown old enough, maybe then, because old age comes with disability, even if you don't have it in the younger years. So it's a part of our culture. It's a part of life. It's a part of every day. It's not anything that, I mean, it's not esoteric. It's not mystical. So we have to face those facts. And once we face that fact, that's the first thing. Then the second thing is we have to allow disabled people to talk. They have to come, they have to have a voice, they have to speak. Because a lot of times we assume for people, any vulnerable group is always being assumed for by somebody else. But it's all right for disabled people to talk. So when they speak, then they can engage, they can think, because to speak, you have to think. And that enables them to think carefully about their issues as well and express them. And then they get involved. So things like education, healthcare, all these amenities that are available to every citizen, there have to be ways of ensuring that disabled people can also access those things as well. That's the beginning of it, yes.
Thank you very much. In about a minute, you made mention of the 2019 disability rights law that was enacted. Could you briefly tell us how this law affects participation in politics, electoral process, and governance?
Okay, yes. The first thing is the law ensures that disabled people are visible. And it also gives provision that it ensures that disabled people are visible, which means that we now exist in data. We now exist in the consideration of groups when we are talking of different groups in the nation. Mm-hmm. So that is the first thing the law has done. And that is the first step to political participation. Now, I also mentioned there's a part that says that the government should actively be involved in ensuring that disabled people participate in politics. Now, that means that at this level, we have to think of accessibility, physical accessibility, structural accessibility, because what really cuts off disabled people is lack of access. So where the polling booths where they go to do the election, are they accessible to a wheelchair user? A deaf person who goes there, is there somebody in that polling station who can at least understand basic sign language and communicate with a deaf person? Or for a blind person who goes there, do you have ballot papers that have some tactile markings that the person can engage with without having to call a sighted person to help them make a vote? Because that compromises the secrecy of their ballot. So these are the little issues, but the law has already given it as a mandate that there has to be that. Now it is for the office that is set up, the commission and other disability groups, to work out the technicalities of how these things are going to take place. So these are the things that will happen.
Thank you very much for explaining that in details, Okoyolua. Moving on to Sheung. Sheung from Junior Chamber International, JCI. How can the gap between the older and younger generation be breached? And what methods can be used to bring in the much needed progress?
Okay, thank you very much, Blessyn. Well done to all the speakers so far. Basically, Junior Chamber International, like I said earlier when we're introducing, is a youth-based organization, leadership organization, and we are out to empower youth between the ages of 18 and 40. Now, I think the way we can bridge the gap between the young and the old is to ensure that the young are given platforms to function. Like the last speaker was saying, most persons in leadership positions now didn't actually have the opportunity to learn the ropes, okay? And so, most times they get to office and they begin to find it difficult to function. So one way to bridge that gap is to ensure that youths are given the platform to function, not necessarily in a publicly acclaimed office, but when you have responsibilities, you have roles. This older generation needs to give room for the younger ones. And that's one thing JSA is particular about. That's why we have that age range between the ages of 18 and 40. When you are 40, you are actively out of the organization. You're still a member, you can become a life member, but you're actively out. You can't vote and be voted for. You can't hold any elective office. If that is not in place, you find situations where the same persons want to come back over and over and over again. And that's what we see happening, in the larger populace. So if there's a structure in place to give room for a continuous flow of leadership, from the older generation to the younger generation, they keep on passing the baton, then we'll have a way of bridging the gap. Because at the end of the day, most times what this older generation say is that the youth are not ready. They are not willing to take up responsibilities. They are not ready to sacrifice. They're looking for immediate gratification. But the question is, were they given the opportunity? Were they allowed, that leverage? Were they allowed that responsibilities, to be able to find their footing themselves? So one way to bridge the gap is to allow for the youth to take up responsibilities, and then also mentoring. We should have a situation or a structure where there's room for access. The youth should be able to access information from the older generation. It shouldn't be a situation of who knows who. If we can also create something like a database of information where you have youth who are able to access information from these older generations who have gone through the leadership rungs, especially in governance, letting them know the nitty-gritty of what it took them to get there, not just coming out to paint everything so beautiful for us. We should understand that there's a process to getting to where we are going to. That information should be available, and that way we'll be able to bridge the gap between the young and the old, and progress will be made.
Thank you very much, Seun. I would like you to talk a bit on the big disconnect between shared values within youth-centered organizations like JCI and what we get from some leaders in Nigeria. What is responsible for this disconnect, and how do we correct it with the little influence and opportunity youth have been given?
Oh, a lot of things can be held responsible for the disconnect. Most times you have different people coming from diverse backgrounds. You have different principles being invited into these youths as they grow up. You have different beliefs, you have different practices, and so that gives room for the diversity and for the divergence. But one way that this can be bridged is to have a unified front. The youth should have a unified front where we have laid out core values, principles that we want to live by, and then we are true to it, we are true to ourselves. We have one voice, just like we saw with the ENTAS campaign, one voice, and everyone from different backgrounds, different walks of life, different upbringing, different beliefs, different philosophies came together with one voice and were able to move mountains, so to speak. We felt, the push. Same thing with what is happening now. We should have a situation where the youth are able to come together and have a unified voice. If we cannot have a unified voice, a unified front, then it's going to be difficult to be able to break through the bureaucratic process in governance. You understand? When you have different factions facing different directions, there's no convergence, there's no strength, there's no uniformity, then it's going to be difficult. And also it comes from a place of reorientation. There has to be a renewed mindset. The youth need to be further enlightened and re-enlightened on what is obtainable, what should be our focal point, how we can get there. And hopefully when there's that mind revamp, when there's that change in or shift in mindset, we'll all be able to face the same focal point or the same direction and be able to achieve growth and success in our postulates for inclusiveness in good governance.
Thank you very much, Seun, for shedding more light on that and the points you have highlighted. Unified fronts and values are required, and reorientation on what is obtainable. Moving on to Saeed Tafida from Follow Taxes. First of all, Saeed, you did mention in your introduction something about trust, and my first question to you is going to touch on that. Trust has a huge role to play on this journey to the nation's greatness. How can accountability be guaranteed in order to win the trust of the populace?
I think first is to start linking up to the whole discussion the great panelists here have been discussing upon. First of all, it's the baby step itself. Whether we like it or not, the long history of despotism, military rule, and all the present distrust that exists between the governance and the governed, it's so strong that it cannot be overcome overnight. That's a fact. What do we do then slowly to bridge our gap? First of all, is the opening up. I'm a very big advocate of open government partnership, a process where both government and citizen will sit down to discuss what the challenges are and how do we solve them. Some years back, I read a book by John Achebe called Trouble in Nigeria. If you're reading the book, you assume the book was written in 2020. But unfortunately, that book was written as far back as 1983, the year most of us were not even born then. But because of the cycle of the problems that we keep having that keep happening together, it keeps reoccurring as if it's the present situation. He was talking about the era then, and it is the same era that we have now. Now, how do we solve it? Do we solve it by just sitting down, folding your arms, getting angry that it will not work, or importantly, assuming that somebody is going to step aside and give you the chance? With all apologies, I understand it's true. The leaders, present political elite need to give the youth the opportunity to come in. We have few of them like Madam Nasrufai who is giving the opportunity, but the majority will not. The best thing is to take it. And you don't take it by just war, you take it by demanding, asking questions. Everywhere a little step is done, you put a little of it in there. When there's not a space, you pushed it again until the whole door is open. Now, on the government side, there has to be a whole grade of openness. Now we have improved openness, which is improving on transparency. Accountability has always been our gaps because even the legal systems are not functioning as expected. So even if someone is wrong and you ask for him and you demand it and you sue him, you don't get the right result. Importantly, it's opening the process, engaging in the process, understanding the process, and asking the right questions. The more you do that, you get hospitals being built back. We have in some of the projects we're tracking contracting, we have some of our monitors who will go to a place to find that the project has been done, but the hospital is not functioning. There's no actually working a motorized borehole, which was supposed to be part of it. But just because the questions have started, who is supposed to do it? What do you know the name of the contractor? Have you ever met him? Next week, if you come back, you find the contractor on that side, making patches, fixing those things, and making sure the right thing is being done. He wouldn't have come back if not because the questions were asked. So what we're just trying to say is to build the trust is also to do the trust, and then also to demand the right question and to push one step at a time and see how best results you can.
Okay, thank you very much, Saeed. What can the government do to ensure that citizens fulfill their civic responsibilities of paying taxes, given that the fact that many factors seem to discourage them from doing so? I know we've spoken about what the government should do, but what should the citizens do in this case?
Importantly is the citizens understanding the government. If you citizens understand the government, you understand that there is no rain where money falls from the roof in government house or government go there with their bag and pack it. It doesn't exist. Every money you see today, it's actually an accumulation the way you do in your house when your elder sister is getting married. Everybody with his 20 naira, 30 naira, everybody contributes. That's what forms government funds. From the federal allocation, the fact we're all hearing fact, it's actually taxes, value-added tax, company income tax, petroleum profit tax. It's actually government funds that are collected from someone. Now, if we all understand this, and we understand that when most of us that went through public universities in Nigeria, we used to say our lectures in PTF1, our lectures in ETF2, all of those ETF and PTF are actually funds of education tax and also petrol profit tax. As soon as you understand it, then you realize you also need to contribute to a quota, no matter how small it is. The only challenge is most of us feel, what are they doing with our money? But how will you ever know if you didn't ask a question? How will you ever know if you didn't understand the processes of budgeting and procurement? How will you ever know if you didn't ask the right question? Unlike everybody's discussion here, when we're all discussing, focusing on making sure electorals are being pulled, the youth are being pulled together and all, One thing that will never diverge from all of this discussion is that what we all want at the end is to get better, regardless of who is leading the process. And if we really want to get it better, we have to act better. And acting better simply means doing it together, acting together, co-creating the problems and the solutions, and actually working towards it. Shamsuddin, you spoke about we met at the open contract at the open. It's actually just wanting to follow up. We don't have much to do there, but because we're there, we become a representative, then there goes to be a certain degree of decorum of making sure that the right thing is being done. Basically, that's what we do.
Okay, thank you very much. You did mention that is to make sure that there's a certain extent of decorum by virtue of presence of people who will ask questions and try to follow up on those questions. Can you share with us the influence civil societies like yours have had on holding government accountable to the society, and with a focus on how they use taxes?
Presently, here in Kaduna and at the national level, we are part of different technical working groups in which we work on policies and making sure we work on public policy dialogues that further build in the system. In Kaduna now, we've trained and equipped more than 30 different community-based organizations or civil society organizations to be able to ask questions. Some of them live as far as Kagarku, some of them are in Zaria, some of them are within Kaduna State. Every day asking questions and working together. Each one of these is pushing a certain number of projects. List each one has is about 5 to 6, and those projects are from public data that are being put together. Now, these people we all brought together are all, some of them are even activists, some of them has an incorporated NGOs, some of them are just members of the society. Most importantly is we're building more knowledge, more ability to ask questions. What we're always praying is the endurance for the right result to come in, so that we get the right result as we push and we go together.
Okay. Thank you very much for shedding light on that. I hope your questions have been answered by your thoughts. We have tried to convey people's thoughts in the questions. Moving on to Shamsuddin from Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship. Last but not the least, Shamsuddin, my question for you is, well, pretty simple. How can the continuity of the issues the KIF has shed light on during this week-long community service be ensured? Or does it end today? Or what are you putting in place to ensure the continuity?
Absolutely not. Well, continuity, as you know, has always been a pain in the back for us as a people. We try as much as possible not to sustain things we do. But at KIF, it's a whole lot of a different thing. This community service is really targeted at giving back to the society, because as fellows, we've been invested in. We have been empowered with a lot of skills, and we are still getting empowered. How can we make sure that we give back to the society? Is by lining up these activities. We have a borehole launch, which we will be building in 3 different locations, 3 senatorial districts in Kaduna State. We have the drug abuse campaign. We have the visit to the School of Blind, whereby we will be sharing computers to them and also installing solar panels, and visit to the orphanage. Today, it's very interesting. We were at the Adonai orphanage home, and it was very interesting when we had interactive session with these kids. The session was really infectious, very smart kids. Our colleague, who is the medical doctor, Uchenna, engaged them in the conversation, and very small kids, but they were able to respond to questions asked, especially as they pertain to hygiene. Now, sustainability or continuity is relative. In the case of going to this particular orphanage today, we don't know who is in that orphanage. They can be kids, but they are leaders of tomorrow. Preaching compassion and showing love to them will go a long way in shaping who they become in the society and how they can also give back to the society. Like the borehole launch that we are going to do by the grace of God tomorrow. Also, we incorporated the society into it because we're building them in schools, and they are SBMCs, which are the School-Based Management Committee and the PTA. They have the ownership of this particular initiative. When you bring people and show them that this particular initiative is for you and is targeted at you, they get this spirit of ownership, and in the long run, there will be sustainability. Now, we are all a microcosm in the society. Everyone can contribute their quota towards the betterment of the society. Just like my colleague Dida will say, each one help one. We can do things to better the society. It doesn't mean you can go doing it for everybody. If you change one life, it's a success story. How many people you've blessed is how you measure success. Now, this gesture is meant to be didactic. It's to teach people that they can do things ordinarily in the different way. And by doing that, this personal social responsibility will be inbuilt, and it's going to be in it. It's going to be built in us. And basically, this is what it's all about. And we believe giving back to the society in such a way will make the ride worthwhile. And this is what we do at the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship. So sustainability is something that you work towards. And most of the projects we have in this country fail because we don't incorporate the locals into it. So this particular thing we've done so far is targeted at incorporating the locals and making them feel that they are loved and they are appreciated. So in a nutshell, this is all it's all about here.
Okay, thank you very much, Shamsuddin, for taking us through the agenda of the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship during their Community Development Week. And I hope you all get to achieve all that you've set out to do to impact the societies around. So with Shamsuddin's talk, that is about all we can take on the panel today. It's been amazing having discussions and very enlightening. I'm sure our viewers have at least one takeaway from it. But before we leave, just briefly in a few seconds, would each of you say any final words you have, please? In no particular order.
Yes. Okay. Well, there comes a time when it beholds upon a generation to act. Mm-hmm. This is our time to make a difference. And in making a difference, we just have to start. And the best way to start is by starting. So let's do it, and we'll rest assured that we've changed lives. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
Okay. Yeah, so I'll just say that I want to appreciate everyone for the work they're doing. It does take a village. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. You know, the spirit of collectivism is very important to the struggle and to what we're trying to build. And, you know, as much as possible is to push the right people out in 2023 and support them, youths, women, minorities, you know, and then also encourage men as allies as well. But, you know, I look forward to a better Nigeria in our lifetime. People say we're doing this for the future generation, but I say I'm doing it for my lifetime. I want to see Nigeria change in my lifetime while still working for the future generation as well. So well done, everyone. And yeah, great session.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I will say that it has always been our time. And the only way we don't see it as our time is because we've been delaying in actually acting. So if we really want to see that change that we want to see tomorrow, nobody ever gets to leave a footprint on the sand by sitting. Nobody said it's going to be easy, but if you fall down, you're expected to get up. If you get hit, you're supposed to suck it up. When you get pushed, you're supposed to stand firm, but nobody says it's going to be easy, and that's the only way we'll get it done. No any society, no any country you ever want your country to look like that has never passed through such a difficult. So this is your time to act, and if you don't act now, you wouldn't know when it will be too late.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Said. Sheung, Okpelu, are you with us?
Hi.
Okay, any final words?
Oh, yes. My own final word is, we can't say we have progress in the political sphere or economic sphere when certain parts of the population are cut off from development. So persons with disabilities, women, youth, all the various minority groups must be carried along at this point. we've set a conversation now. We can see from what we said that there are issues, and these issues, it's going to affect everybody positively if they are addressed. So I think we have a lot of potentials in the nation, but we have to use what we consider right now as liabilities because we are neglecting them. We have to convert them and allow them to be active in building the nation, and then we can be sure of development. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Sheung?
Okay, I was cut off for a while. Please, what?
Okay, so we've come to the end of the session and we were asking for final words. You are the person left.
Okay. All right then. Thank you very much, Blessing. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Final words from me will be for us to continue in the slides. Okay, at the end of the day, it's going to have a rippling effect on the society at large. Our children will have a better society to come into. Our grandchildren will have a better society to come into. And then I want to encourage that youth should begin to initiate conversations consistently around good governance and then show up. One thing is to have the opportunity there. Another thing is for us to show up that indeed we are ready to take up the mantle. We are ready to serve. Nobody will handpick you. You just have to show up, be there, serve, do your part. And then when it's time, of course, you'll be able to take up such offices when it gets to you. And at the end of the day, we should always be true to ourselves. Function where you have your strength the most. Do not necessarily follow the crowd. Function where you have your strength the most, and you'll be able to stand the test of time. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sheung. I want to say a special thank you to Ibijoke from Electa, Okweolu from Disability Awareness and Development Initiative, DADI, Sheung from Junior Chamber International, JCI, Follow Taxes, Saeed, thank you very much as well, and Shamsuddin from Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship, KIF. My name is Blessyn Kure, and I am very honored to have moderated this discussion today. Very educative, very informative, and I hope that someone somewhere has taken down notes and made a resolve to be part of the improvement in Nigeria, in leading Nigeria to greatness. Our topic of discourse is Youth and Governance, Roadmap to Nigeria's Greatness. And I think we've touched on every ramification. Of course, the discussion can never end, but we have touched on various sectors as it involves these 5 organizations. We said all-inclusive approaches, and not everyone must run for office. Find your own quota, contribute your own little, make your own little effort in your corner, and you will be part of the change you want to see. Thank you very much to the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship for having this discussion, and we hope they get to achieve everything they've set aside for their Community Development Week. And with that, we say thank you for viewing and thank you for watching. We hope next time we call on you for a program, you will be present. Do have a wonderful night rest, and God bless.
Thank you all, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for
We're still live.